So how many of you guys had the Zillow Beast returning on your list of things? Oh my god, I can't even finish that sentence because it just Okay, how's everyone doing today, guys? My name is C-Codes, and this is The Bad Batch. This is Season 2, Episode 11, Metamorphosis, and I can't believe that... Okay, I guess before we... I'm just gonna say, I couldn't believe they actually did this. And I think one of the reasons for that is because I literally had just recently, because it's, Star Wars, Bad Batch, and Mandalorian Season 3, all this kind of being present, I went back and watched some episodes of Clone Wars, and one of the episodes I watched was the Zillow Beast arc, because, hey, it was one of those fun, homage episodes that they did, because they did, the Zillow Beast which was a Godzilla King Kong thing. They did their Seven Samurai homage with Hondo trying to take over a village, and you had Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and some bounty hunters working together to stop him. So then, but I remember at the end of the Zillow Beast arc when Palpatine was like, "Yeah, we'll clone the Zillow Beast because we don't want its species to go extinct." So, I don't think it was one of those moments where I'm thinking, when it happened, I'm like, they actually finally brought that thing back. And at the same time, I'm wondering, because I am curious to see, because I know when people talk about Clone Wars, they say season 3 and beyond are the best seasons. So I feel like for some people who watch Clone Wars, or maybe not even watch Clone Wars at all, I wonder what the reaction is to this episode. I get to see someone watching this episode for the first time and not having a clue what the heck the Zillow Beast is, and they just see it, and then they hear it's a clone of the beast that attacked Coruscant, and of course then they'll just be like, wait a minute, this thing attacked Coruscant? And then they just hear, wait, Chancellor Palpatine authorized this thing to be cloned? What the frick? It's absolutely insane. But I think what tops this whole thing off is it gives connection to the overarching story of the season, which is insane as well. And I'll say this: the way this episode starts, with the way this episode starts versus the way this episode ends, how the heck was I supposed to guess it was gonna be the Zillow? Okay, so how does this episode start? It basically starts as Alien, the movie Alien. You have a Republic commando on a ship that had just come out of hyperspace in total wreck. It's literally a wreck. It's like in the final arc of Clone Wars when the command ship came out of hyperspace. It's smoking because it's destroyed, basically. This Republic commando, he's lurking around. It's dark. Things are broke. You get everything's in shambles. He's just trying to figure out what's going on, where the heck the monster is, and then you just got the hanging above the ceiling, he gets eaten alive, and I'm like, oh my god, what the heck are they about to... So, I think it's funny, because when it came to the last episode, last week, I was a little underwhelmed with how things wrapped up, and I was a little worried that things weren't gonna... how the season was gonna continue after that. Glad to see it didn't take long for things to turn around. Oh my goodness. Because this opening sequence really got me just being like, okay, that was cool. If the rest of the episode is like this with the Bad Batch, I won't mind. Although, this episode also got me wondering in terms of the way the production is for this show, because it really didn't dawn on me until this episode when the Bad Batch, after had just recovering their ship, they call Sid. They're chewing Sid out for basically leaving him on the planet. But Sid's like, "Hey, you got your ship back. You guys are fine." And then then's like, "Okay, fine. How about this for the next? We got tip that a ship that the ship has crashed. It's got a lot of cargo. We'll give you 30%." And of course, Tech's like, "That's the usual amount you give us." "Okay, fine, 35%. They're like, "No, 40, 50." It's so good. But when they get to this ship, it's night. They arrive on this planet. It's night. The ship is out in the woods. They go into the ship. The power is out. And there's a lot of. It's here when I wondered just what their production budget is, because despite the fact that this animation is phenomenal, like everything looks amazing. There have been an awful lot of moments in this season, especially this season, where they're just in a really dark area. I'm looking and thinking back on season 1, there also were a few times where they were in just in this really dark area. You don't really see much. You only see like maybe their flashlights, maybe them silhouette, a little silhouette walking around. Is that because the budget is making them kind of like, okay, we have this, like, because of how well the animation is nowadays with the show, they kind of have to cut a few corners in terms of their budget. Like, maybe, they're like, okay, we need them to venture through this ship, but let's make it super dark so we can save some animation budget on that, so then we can save it for later or something. Because, seriously, there's just been a lot of moments where they're in a dark area, like in the Entombed episode, they're in that first room, and it's kind of really, and it's kind of dark. They're going through the tunnels. There's a few moments where it's kind of dark. It's just like, I don't know. I think, I don't know if this is me noticing it and being a little bit bothered by it, or if it actually is like a production thing, but I don't know. That's just me. But in this episode, it works really well because that's the point. They're looking around in this crashed ship, and they're wondering what caused it to crash. They're looking around. They're heading in this lab, which is Kaminoan, that Omega recognizes. But of course, she's like, "But it's Kaminoan, but it's not this technology that I'm familiar with." And they figure out that, yeah, it's like there's this creature on the ship, and at first, it basically looked like this gigantic lizard, but looking back on it now, it doesn't look like the Zilla Beast when it's this semi-small compared to what the Zilla Beast is. It's this small little lizard thing that's, on all fours, crawling around. It's basically gobbling up anything it could get its hands on. And yeah, it doesn't look like a Zilla Beast at first. But the only thing that's different about it is that the mouth, like, you can kind of see the mouth resembling that of a Zilla Beast, but everything else doesn't resemble a Zilla Beast at all until it busts out of the ship. It goes to the local power grid, gobbles that up, and all of a sudden you just get the gigantic Zilla Beast, because as Tech finds out, the more it eats, the bigger it gets. It's kind of like, man, I'm trying to think, like, what the only one that comes to mind is, it's from the Lego Ninjago TV show, if anyone had ever watched that. It's the early on in the show, there was the snake known as the Great Devourer that had the same concept. The more it ate, the bigger it got. So that's pretty much what I thought about here with the Zilla Beast. Just, it eats as much as it can eat, and then it gets bigger and bigger. And of course, for the Bad Batch, they're like, "What the heck is this thing?" And Tech and Omega are the ones who uncovered that it's the Zilla Beast that was cloned because of Chancellor Palpatine after what happened on Coruscant. And I love that Hunter is like, "Why would the Emperor authorize this?" And then Tech's like, "Actually, he authorized it when he was Chancellor, not when he was the Emperor." It's just one of those moments where you're like thinking, Oh yeah, he did authorize it as Chancellor, not as the Emperor, but it's just but unfortunately for the Bad Batch, they really can't do much against this thing. I mean, they tried to stop it because they're like, we let this thing out that it's heading to this local town. We got to stop it. But unfortunately, they're not the only ones looking for it because the shipment, because it was the clone Zilla Beast authorized by Palpatine. Of course, this is being transported by the Empire now, and it's heading to the same planet that the group busted Wrecker out of in season 1, which is where Nalase, the Kaminoan, who she she let the group escape. She is the lead scientist for the cloning project, and she's on Kaminoan, or not Kaminoan. She's being held prisoner on this planet, and there is this. I'm guessing the new big bad for the show. It's Dr. Hemlick, and I'll say this: I thought it was the same dude. I don't. It's not. I don't think it's the same dude from Mandalorian because that is a 25-year gap at the very least between these two. So I don't think it's the same guy, but it does look similar to him, and I might be completely wrong. I don't know. Like I said, I watch these episodes and I immediately react. So Dr. Hemlick, he comes here. He's Hemlock. He comes in. He's talking to Nalase. They have history together, but he clearly wants Nalase to work with them on the cloning project, but Nalase refuses. And so, makes sense why Nalase refuses because she literally lost her entire home planet. But Dr. Hemlock, of course, wants her to help, so he has to figure out a way for her to cooperate. But of course, the Zilla Beast got loose, so he's got to deal with that problem. And he, as kind of I figured out throughout this episode, is he doesn't want anyone knowing that the Zilla Beast is still around. So when the Zilla Beast is attacking this local town, you got Imperial ships coming in. You know, they're taking out they're knocking out the Zilla Beast and taking it. And I love Wrecker just being like, wait, they're not killing it, they're taking it. And then just, they literally have a gigantic ship for the Zilla Beast, which was also ridiculous. But you get all these Republic commandos coming in. At first, I was like, oh my god, are they actually going to massacre this town? But no, they actually take them all prisoner. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if that's better or worse. Just because, depending on what they do, like literally this whole town they did nothing wrong, but of course in the eyes of the Imperials, they could be like, you've let this creature loose and infiltrated Imperial, all that. So like espionage and all that. So they literally could be tried for espionage and treason and be forced to work as slaves or be imprisoned. And it's like, oh my god, oh man. And unfortunately for the Bad Batch, they can't really do much about that. All they can do is just, their original goal was to, stop the Zilla Beast from causing havoc. Technically speaking, they achieved that with the Empire showing up and they flee. And for the crew, they discovered the information, discovered that this is the Zilla Beast that was cloned under the authorization of Palpatine. And they basically put the pieces together. It's like, makes a little more sense why they destroyed Kamino then, because it's like, if they're able to clone something like the Zilla Beast without Kamino, who say that they can't clone anything? It's like, I think Hunter or Tech is the one who says it. It's like they didn't want to destroy it; they wanted to control it. So it's up to Echo and Rex, as Hunter tells Tech to send the info to Echo and Rex. So I wonder if we're gonna get an Echo and Rex episode. I mean, because come on, they literally set that up. They set this up, so who knows, maybe next episode or a few episodes down the line we'll get an Rex Echo episode. But yeah, no, this episode was insanity. And I think it's just because it's the Zilla Beast. Like, who would have thought the Zilla Beast would show up here in the Bad Batch? And again, it kind of helps, it furthers the plot. It's not This isn't like a throwaway episode. This is like there's a piece to the puzzle for the Bad Batch here, which is ridiculously. I mean, because again, it's like when you look back on Clone Wars and you think about the Zillo piece, like what really was like the big storyline behind the Zillo piece besides the fact that it's a Godzilla King Kong kind of like homage, but oh man, it's ridiculous. Oh, and then not to mention Dr. Hemlock, like I said, Hemlock, I don't freaking Dr. Hemlock. I'm gonna go with Hemlock. Hemlock, like I said, maybe he's the new big bad for the show. Now that we have Rampart out of the way, who knows where Rampart is? Maybe Rampart will join the Bad Batch as kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And we haven't had Crosshair in a while, so I wonder where he is. But Hemlock goes to Lama Su, the Prime Minister of Kamino, the one who kind of talks like this and assumes that the Empire won't cause much problem to him and his like he's apparently a prisoner and he decides to reluctantly work with Hemlock if it means he gets his freedom, and he basically just says, oh, you want Nala say the fall in line? Well, go after Omega. Like, basically he just reveals that. And so Hemlock, of course, is like, interesting. The one problem I have with this, though, is we already had last season where Omega was kidnapped a few times, and the Bad Batch had to save her, so I'm hoping this time around she doesn't get kidnapped. It's more like it's a manhunt, and so the group has to go on the run, kind of like, not like last season per se, but I don't know. But the targets are back on their backs again. Like, Rampart at first was like, oh, they're dead per se, but now it's like, oh boy, they're looking for Omega, so they're gonna have to find the Bad Batch. So we'll see what happens. But no, I had a fun time with this episode. I think after the clone conspiracy arc, this past arc was, like I said, it was fine. We had some fun time. We had fun chemistry building with Omega and Tech for the most part. There were a few funny moments, but I don't know. I felt like the story was a little stretched out too much. I don't know. It's just me. But yeah, no, this episode really just got me being like, yes, we got Star Wars. Oh man, but yeah. So those are my thoughts on this episode. What do you guys think?